somebody might say something and you start being really reactive towards them, you start shouting at them, which more often than not leads to a lot of regret. But just being aware of this pendulum, so by having that visual in the back of your mind of a pendulum and just asking yourself throughout the day, whereabouts is the pendulum right now? Am I sort of swinging towards anger? Am I swinging towards collapse? What is it that I need to do to bring it back towards the center?
Welcome to the Bucket List Life Podcast with Trav Bell, the world's #1 bucket list expert. Bucket List Life's mission is to help you get off the treadmill, stop Groundhog Days, hack your habits, and live a regret-free life. Because we know life's way too short not to live your bucket list life. So please welcome your host, Trav Bell, the Bucket List Guy.
Hey Bucket Listers, welcome to another episode of the Bucket List Life Podcast. I'm Trav Bell, the Bucket List Guy, your host, and thanks so much for tuning in once again, whether you're listening, watching, whatever. Today is going to be awesome. Here we go. Anthony Laye. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, really good, thanks. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us on the Bucket List Life Podcast, mate. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. First question. You and I fly around quite a bit. We go into different countries and speak. You speak on different stuff, which we'll unpack in a second. I speak on different stuff. But when we enter a country, we get given these incoming passenger cards, right? And on it, there's a little small space that says occupation. There's a little small space to write your occupation. Mate, what do you put in there?
So, I've played around with this a little bit over the years and I've changed what I've written in there. Because I used to work a lot on cruise ships, I'd be flying in and out of the country, into different countries all the time. And when I worked on the cruise ships, I worked on the ships as a mentalist. So sometimes I'd write on the thing, mentalist.
Really? You really put that? Really?
I've actually put that.
Wow.
Learned very quickly that writing mentalist leads to an awful lot of questions when you start to go through. So then I started writing entertainer.
Uh-oh.
And again, that also came to a lot of questions. And when you're traveling so much and you're going in and out of all these different places, the last thing that you want is to suddenly be pulled to the side and have a lot of questions asked about what is it that you do and explain it a bit more. So to be honest with you, now if I'm writing anything, I just write self-employed.
Yeah. That's the safety. You learned the hard way, mate. Yeah. So even when you put speaker, I can't imagine mentalist. Oh my God, that would bring up so many questions. And my questions around that is, what is a mentalist?
So the way that I describe it on stage now is that I lie for a living. And when I say that, what I mean is that I lie by pretending to be psychic. So I create the illusion of being able to read people's minds and being able to extract their thoughts. But there's a method to everything that I'm doing. There's a process to everything that I'm doing on stage.
So spoiler alert, it's not magic. It's just reading people, and that's how it looks like magic.
So it's an art form that's a real mixture of magic. So there's misdirection in there. There might be some hypnosis in there, so some hypnotic language. So it's a real mixture of things, and a lot of people present it in a lot of different ways. You've got people that might go the full psychic route, claiming to be psychic, and look, whether psychic powers do or don't exist, I'm still skeptically curious. I know how I do what I do, which is I'm not psychic. There is a process. Some of that is from my knowledge of magic. Some of it is around my knowledge of people. Some of it's around my knowledge of hypnosis. So to me, it's an interesting art form because it's about people.
Yeah. And I guess for the listeners and watchers to this podcast right now with us, hard to get your head around what that actually is. I guess illusionist, is that another term that gets thrown around?
Yeah, so I've been called illusionist, magician, mentalist, hypnotist, so many different things. And to be honest with you, I've stopped trying to convince anybody of what it is. You just call it whatever you see it as, and we'll go with that. At the end of the day, I'm interested in, did you find it fun? Were you entertained? Did it bring some joy to you for the time that you were watching it? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Call me whatever you want, man.
Tick, tick, tick. What led you to become a mentalist? What leads a person to that? Did you study NLP and hypnosis and then went, hey, I could take this further, or?
No, so my entry into it was through magic. So when I was younger, I was what I would consider to be probably a little bit socially awkward, got a little bit anxious if I had to have conversations with people. At the same time, I was also really curious. If I saw something that I couldn't figure it out, I would have to figure it out. And magic to me was one of those things that I couldn't figure out, but it also then became a tool that I could use in social situations to be able to connect with other people.
So to interrupt there, I've heard other magicians say that they got into magic to pick up girls, and it always I've never done magic, but I've heard that it is a complete arsenal of weapons that crushes every time. Is that true, mate? Is that the real reason you got into it? Yes or no?
Okay. It's not the real reason I got into it. However, it did become useful further down the track. Okay, so we're going to go down this little rabbit hole around magic and girls. So
you don't look like if you're watching this, you'll get, he's not ugly, this guy. But if you're listening to this, go over to YouTube. The guy doesn't need magic, for God's sake, but I'm interested.
So I got interested in magic initially from curiosity and as a tool to just be able to do impressive things. I think what you would find, I might get the magic community backlashing against me here. If you were to go to a magic convention, so a couple of times a year, there's a couple of really big conventions that happen. Obviously, from the accent, you can tell you used to live in the UK. And there is a Blackpool convention where thousands upon thousands of people descend upon this convention centre in Blackpool, all doing magic. Everywhere you turn, there's either something disappearing or reappearing.
This is
weirdest place to be.
Dude, this is fascinating. So there's two massive magic conventions around the world each year.
Yeah, look, there's quite a few, but there's the really big one that I knew in the UK was the Blackpool Magic Convention. Wow. And then there's one that happens over in America as well, which is even bigger. But it's just weird because it's just a room full of magicians doing random magician stuff. What I've found and what I've noticed about the magic world is that magic does naturally attract people that are probably quite introverted. It is something that attracts out those kind of people. And I honestly think that if you were to look at a lot of the really successful magicians around the world, those magicians that stand on stage and they've got all the skills of being a showman or showwoman on stage. In the background, they have this team of really clever magicians that are coming up with these ideas, but they're also the kind of people that are a little bit awkward in social situations.
Yeah, right. I get that.
So magic naturally attracts that kind of people. So going back to your question around, does it help with the girls and picking up girls? So back in 2003, I was going through a bit of a rough time with the business that I had back in the UK. And so we were going out drinking a lot. At the same time, so between sort of 2003, 2006, I think was the time. A lot of my friends back in the UK, they were all in the military.
Right.
And they were coming back from being over in Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff. And they were coming back. And whereabouts I lived in the UK, it was also Limpstone Marine Training Base was 15 minutes up the road. So it's a really big military town. So they were all coming back from being out on deployment and having to decompress. I was struggling with business and trying to decompress. So we would go out to the pub and I'd be surrounded by all of these burly Marines ready to, like, the muscles all flexing. They would send me in as the sort of the go-in guy to do a few magic tricks. I'd do a few magic tricks and then open up a group of girls and I'd get them all talking. And then I'd have about 10, 15 Marines just suddenly come swooping in because they're all big and muscly. Then they would then start talking to all these girls. And then I'd be left stood there at the end with a pack of cards in my hand. And the girls left.
Pack of cards.
It's just all taken away.
Shit. Pack of cards in one hand and something else in the other. Yeah.
But look, it can work, But one thing that I have discovered is it also depends upon who you are, because you could, if you were a really sleazy magician going up and saying, oh yeah, choose a card kind of thing, but you are coming across as really sleazy, it's not going to work. And what underpins a lot of the stuff that I talk about is who you are is more important than what you say. And that flows through everything, whether you're doing magic, whether you're having a conversation, who you are as a person is really what's important.
Yeah, and what you're really gone deep on is really the subtleties of, the intricacies, the devil's in the detail of communication, right? Like, and we'll get into that in a second. You were on Australia's Got Talent, yeah?
I was back in 2012, a little while ago now.
Well, so podcast team, can you also drop that? Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. There's a fair few clips around.
Rightio. All right. Awesome. And you got third, did I read?
Top three of the semis.
Top three of the semis. Okay, there you go. Where do those skills that you've learnt over the years, both from, before I ask that question, who's your favorite illusionist / magician?
So I would say it, in the world of mentalism, it would have to be Darren Brown. So, if you know who a lot of Australians don't know who Darren Brown is. Absolute, like a megastar back in the UK. He's managed to hold a TV career for an extremely long period of time, considering the industry that he's in. But he's somebody who's constantly evolved. He's constantly changed, and I think now the way that he presents mentalism is more, it's gone from him being the star, doing stuff in the street, reading people's minds, to now showing you what is possible with the human mind.
Into potentialism and this sort of stuff that you talk about, right?
Yeah, and what is potentially possible with some of the skills that maybe a mentalist would know, or somebody who is really good at influence and persuasion and hypnosis and that kind of thing. It can be quite scary, but also quite exciting at the same time, just seeing what is possible.
Yeah. And what about, so I love David Blaine. Like, I don't know whether
David Blaine's amazing.
Yeah, and whether he's full of shit or not, but, and of course you do anything in front of celebrities and they go, oh my God, and that's how you get famous really quick. But he's fascinating. And the other shout out, and I've shared the stage with not Dr. Oz, sorry, Oz Perlman. He's not a doctor.
Oz is amazing as well.
Yeah, over in the States at a few gigs. So, so you mentioned mind reading. Where does that parlay? And are you doing it right now on me? I don't know what's happening. Am I in a?
So in what respect? What do you want me to unpack around the whole mind reading side of things?
So that's part of being a mentalist.
Yeah.
Right. So
again, like I said back at the very beginning, there is a process to what I'm doing. I'm not genuine. So mind reading gives the illusion. Just by using that word, it gives the illusion that I might possess some sort of psychic powers.
Yeah.
And I don't.
It's an illusion.
I don't. There is a way in which I'm able to find out the information from another person.
Right.
So no tinfoil hats are needed from you. I can't delve in there.
It's just it's like this unknown grey cloud, and until you sort of scratch the surface and go deep, everyone thinks it's an illusion. You are mind reading, and that's the beauty of magic. I think it's fascinating. It's got such a role in society, right? It's so damn entertaining. So, how does the skills that you've learned in doing that? How does that? Because you're transitioning more, less entertaining, more now in the corporate field. How have you seen that transition go? What have you used from that world over into this world? How does it relate? What can be mapped over?
So for me, I feel that it is the skills that I use on stage as a mentalist in terms of showmanship, because I'm able to get highly intelligent people to believe, just for a moment, they believe that I might actually be able to read minds. And sometimes they'll come up afterwards and they will question it. And I'm saying to them, no, I've told you that I lie, and I've told you that there's a method to everything that I do.
Don't believe you.
But yet I'm still able to build that much trust with them on stage that they will then start to believe the lies that I'm telling you them on stage, even though I've told them that I'm lying. And that's what really fascinates me, is how can you be able to create that much connection with somebody that you're able to create those moments. And what I've found from doing what I do on stage and then being asked, okay, can you teach this to sales teams and that kind of thing? What I always say is, I can't, what you see is a show, but the skills that I use in order to create that show, that is what I can teach you, because I believe that our ability to communicate is directly linked to our level of success. Because you could know all of the best sales techniques in the world, but if you're not able to communicate in a really good way, then those techniques are they're not going to work.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are the biggest gaps that you see? Because like I said before, you're really in the weeds with communication. You're in the intricacies of it all, and you see it from a mile away, right? What do you see in order to get a person from this level in their life to, their version of success? What would you say are the skills that you'd recommend that a person kind of looks into? Because, this whole Bucket List Life podcast to help them live their bucket list, take risks, ask for help more, experience more of their own potential before their time is up, get out of sleepwalking through their life, be more proactive rather than reactive in their own life, and take more risks and this sort of thing. And communication is a big part of that, right? Confidence is a big part of that. So where do you see the biggest communication gaps and I dare say fixes, for want of a better description?
Look, I think one of the big mistakes is the moment that I stand on stage and I say communication skills, most people's default is, okay, how I'm going to talk to another person. To be honest with you, the first thing anybody would need to do, anybody that I work with, first of all, I get the communication with themselves sorted out, because without that, everything else is lost. We need to understand ourselves. What is it that's holding us back? Why is it that we might hold back in certain conversations? Why is it that sometimes we find ourselves puffing our chests out and getting all angry with other people? So we really need to understand the relationship with ourselves. And if we can do that by default, and as a side, I suppose, as a byproduct of us knowing ourselves, we become much better communicators with other people. One of the big mistakes I think a lot of people make these days is that they're going onto YouTube and they're looking for these quick hacks. And I know that in the past, on some of your podcasts, you've spoken about hacks and how you don't particularly like them. I'm not the biggest fan of hacks, because you're just looking for something that you can do in that conversation to make somebody else either make a choice or do something. But what if instead of the hacks, you actually became the kind of person that purely through who you are as a person, you were able to connect with somebody so that became a byproduct of that communication.
Sort of like be the change that you want to see in the world, Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So how can we, if a person is watching and listening to this right now and they're like, I want to be a better communicator. What's something that, what's some of the, I guess, best practices, or, how could they go out there today and start practicing this and start taking that muscle to the gym?
What I would say is start to become really aware of yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah. In situations. Now that's not to the point where you don't focus on the conversation, but just notice what comes up for you in different conversations. When you find yourself wanting to say something, it's about reflection afterwards. So I've got it right beside me. I keep a journal every single day, and I will have conversations with myself in the journal around maybe some of the conversations that I had, or if I've had a coaching call with a client and I found myself, a little moment came up, I'll make a quick note of it and then I'll revisit it later on.
Let's put a pin in that for a sec. What's your journaling practice? And then we'll come back to that. So do you have because we're all about communication with self. Journaling is a great way. Do you recommend that as a tool, as a practice?
100%.
I don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't do it. Why should I do it?
I believe that journaling, so I used to journal with I bought one that had questions in it and you answered the questions each and every single day. While I enjoyed doing that, that got me into, so that started the discipline of me journaling, which then created a habit. So now it's something which I do automatically.
You do it in the morning, it is, in the afternoon, after, before bed, or what's your...
So I will have this near me most of the day.
Right.
And if a thought comes up, I will normally just pop it down on the page. If I have time right there and then, I will go into, I almost coach myself through the journal. So all I'm doing is I'm writing down the thoughts that come up. So for example, this morning, we're thinking about moving house next year. I had a quick look on the internet this morning at some houses, saw a house come up for $8 million. It just happened to just pop up. Basically, I was like, whoa, like, what kind of person would live there? So then that to me is like, okay, there's something around myself and the way that I believe in myself.
There's some resistance
that's come up.
Interesting.
So I'll make a note of that. And then later on today, I'll probably revisit that and I'll have a bit of a conversation with myself. But it sounds slightly mental. That's what a mentalist.
Mentalist.
If I hear other people as well, so in our conversation today, I might hear something which I might write down. If I hear a really good quote, I'll write that kind of stuff down. It's me really unpacking my own thoughts because there's so much that goes on inside our heads. And some of it does need to be revisited, especially when it's something I'll pay extra attention if I find myself holding back or if I'm ever thinking to myself, yeah, I probably couldn't do that. It's like, okay, hang on a second, Anthony. Why do you think you couldn't do that?
Yeah. Do you have prompters, like your own personal set of prompters to get you in the writing spirit, in the journaling spirit?
No, now it's because I've done it. I think because I've done it for so long, it just becomes automatic now that I'll just write something down and that thought will then become the prompt to generate a conversation.
So dumping thoughts through journaling on the daily is a great practice for us to build, to understand our own communication. Can you recommend anything else that we can kind of start building that up, that bank of, communication, I guess, goodwill?
I think for me, approaching every single, so curiosity, and I know that you love the whole curiosity side of things, just become curious every single day. And so approach every single day with curiosity. And then the next thing, and this is something that I get all of my one-on-one clients to do. This was something, I didn't create this. This was something that was shared to be by my mentor, Chase Hughes. And that is the idea of a composure pendulum. So our perfect state where we're going around the world, we're able to make really good decisions. We're in a state of composure. We're not being affected by any stresses. But throughout the day, situations, people, the environment, it's going to cause our pendulum to swing one way or the other. So one way is going to be into collapse. So we start to make ourselves smaller. We might back away from opportunities or from getting into conversations if we're talking about communication skills. Could be that someone suddenly asks you a question and you don't know the answer to it and you find yourself backing away, wishing that the world would open up and swallow you up.
Or you're triggered, or I dare say triggered by certain circumstances, events, people, even words.
Then on the flip side of that, we've then got the posturing side of things, which is whereabouts you start to, I suppose we got more anger living on this side, where somebody might say something and you start being really reactive towards them, you start shouting at them, which more often than not leads to a lot of regret. But just being aware of this pendulum. So by having that visual in the back of your mind of a pendulum and just asking yourself throughout the day, whereabouts is the pendulum right now? Am I sort of swinging towards anger? Am I swinging towards collapse? What is it that I need to do to bring it back towards the center?
I like that visual. Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool.
It just brings a presence to you as well. So what I like to say, if I'm presenting up on stage, so I have the pendulum, and then I also have a question that goes with it, and that is, how should I be turning up? So that one question, it makes you become very self-aware of yourself. Maybe you've had a stressful drive-in, and you're about, if it's business we're talking about, and you're about to meet a client, and you've been stuck in traffic, you're running a little bit late. The chances are, if you go straight into that meeting with the client, you're going to turn up a little bit stressed out. You're going to come across as maybe a little bit standoffish, a little bit out of control. But if you just take a moment and just go, how should I be turning up? And go, okay, I'm a little bit stressed out. So what do I need to do? Okay, let's breathe for 5 nice breaths or something just to calm myself back down again so that I enter into this next interaction completely present and in a way that I am choosing to turn up. And this should be done multiple times throughout the day.
And your pendulum is not skew if it's back to center again. I've always said, like with the bucket list stuff that I talk about is, sadly, people say this a lot after I speak. Thank you for giving me permission to dream again. Thank you for giving me permission to have fun again. And I'm always saying, which is pretty sad, right? For a 40, 50-year-old person kind of going through a midlife crisis. We actually call it a crisis. I don't know why. but you would have seen a lot of midlife awakenings around you, like I have. But I'm always saying, shouting it as much as I possibly can. Be curiously excited about life. That excitable curiosity is everything. Just like you just said, like being curious, and have that objective viewpoint rather than be subjectively at the cause and effect, be at the effect of everyone, being reactive rather than proactive, learning to be and trying that muscle out to be proactive, curiously excited, be on the front foot, have your own agenda more so than be the bitch of everyone else's, right? And I think that pendulum analogy is great, right? And to have everyone, walk through the world being more on purpose, I think it's great. So we've got the pendulum, we've got the journaling. One more. How can we be better communicators with ourselves?
With the self is, like you just said, so there was that whole curiosity. Approach every single day with curiosity to the point where you almost need to push this as much into your mind as you possibly can, that you need to approach everything with curiosity. So I would almost just put notes around the house. Just be curious, be curious. So you're constantly reminding yourself. And I love it that you mentioned it before as well, because curiosity, let me just backtrack here a little bit. When I got into mentalism, first of all, I was one of these mentalists that wanted to prove all psychics wrong. Because we have that sort of brand of mentalists that just wants to go out there and disprove everything. And so I became a hard skeptic. The problem with being a hard skeptic is it instantly puts up a wall. It means that you've stopped going from a growth mindset to a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
So by purely, and if you were to rewind back, you'll notice that I said that I'm curiously skeptical, which means that by just adding the word curiosity, we're programming ourselves to stay open and go, okay, maybe I don't believe this, but let's have a look at all the different things around this. And by approaching life with curiosity, it opens up your mind to, well, what are the possibilities? Like the $8 million house this morning. My initial thing was like, how am I meant to afford an $8 million house?
I've only got seven and a half. How am I going to get that?
So then it's like, well, let's get curious. I mean, how could I potentially afford an $8 million house? Not that I know that I actually want to live in an $8 million house. I would never make any use of an $8 million house.
No, it's way below you. You're more your 15, 16. But it's like, it's interesting, this book right here. And guys, if you can see the screen here, 10X is easier than 2X. And Dan Sullivan, Dr. Benjamin Harvey. So the whole premise of this book is along the same lines. Let's relate it to business. Business is quite linear, growth on growth. We normally and Grant Cardone, he also made the 10X movement quite a thing as well. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, we live life quite linear. So if you're running a business, you make $1 million. All right, well, we're going to increase it by 10, 20%. That's kind of like the goal for most business owners. But what if, curiosity, but what if I wanted to 10X where my business is at? Go from 1 million or $100,000 or whatever to 1 million or 100 grand to, to 1 million to 10 million. And then you just like the same thing with the $8 million house is it just puts you into this very curious mindset where you've got to look at things very laterally, and it brings in a whole other set of weird and wonderful problem solving, right? I think that is it's a great way to look at life and look, what if I want to get in the best shape of my life? What if I want to get, land that ideal mate? What if I want to travel around the world and live online? What if I want to take my business from here to there? What if I wanted to be a public speaker? What if? And it puts you into this crazy curiosity. And, I guess I've applied that through this bucket list philosophy that I'd been talking about for the last 15 years is don't worry about, and one of the things I find myself saying quite a bit is only worry about the what and the why, not about the how. Because, you know this, right? When you start focusing on the how, it just overcomplicates stuff. And lateral 2X thinking doesn't get the job done. You just got to worry about the what and the why, and then the how will appear. But for that objectivity, there's a certain degree of, I guess, disassociation that happens naturally in curiosity, right? Because you're taking more of an observation viewpoint, and you're not subjective. You're not in the weeds with it.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost explain it, and I think anything that comes up in life, whether it's an argument with a partner or a spouse, or even something bigger or whatever, but if you can get really good at shifting the camera, so rather than just seeing through your eyes all the time, just go, okay, do you know what? How would it look if I was right above? How would it look if I was over there? How would it look if I was over there? And it just opens curiosity. So when you start to get really curious, you can hear it in my voice, you start to create a lot of excitement around, okay, well, this is cool because I'm discovering new things, and we all like an adventure.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. No, I love it. And one of the best, I guess coaching things, and we've kind of gone down rabbit holes, and here we are. One of the best things I've ever seen happen, I've done this with clients as well. Like if they're stuck, let's call it money. And it's called the 3-seater observation. We'll learn this in NLP, right? 3-seater observation. So it goes like this. There's the client, and they've got a block around, let's say, money, right? Which is quite common for a lot of people. They always hit a ceiling. Money comes in, goes out. They're rich, they're poor, but they oscillate between some sort of range of how much they earn at the top, in the peaks and troughs. Okay. But they want to go to the next level. They don't know how. So on one seat, you got 3 seats. On one seat, you got them. On the other seat, could be another person, but it's money. And then the observer's seat on the 3rd seat. And then you ask a question. All right. So client, talk to money. So why aren't you coming into my life? And then what do you reckon money's response is going to be? You've got to put yourself in the money seat and go, and from there, from money's eyes, this is going to get really weird, guys, so stay with me. Money, what is money saying? Well, money's saying this, this, and this, and this. Huh. And then, all right, what's the observer saying? Well, the reason why you two aren't getting along, and the reason why money is not entering, because you're not out there, asking for it, looking for opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of information comes out of that. And then you flip the seats and go, okay, I'll be you talking to money. Now you're in the observer seat. What are you saying? Well, no fucking wonder this person, they're just not getting along for this. And then you flip, you do this kind of around the round we go. And you get you just, again, curious. You see so much information come to the surface of why the two aren't getting along and why that person isn't busting through that ceiling. And it's like staring at it, but we've got to take that different viewpoint. And I think that's extremely powerful, what you said.
I love the 3-chair idea. I've gone through NLP. I've never actually heard anyone explain it.
I don't think I explained it very well, but hopefully someone got something out of it.
You did a really good job on explaining it. My thoughts around this, and from what I've noticed from the people that I've worked with, and when you stand on stage and you speak to people afterwards, they'll come up and ask questions. And that little bit of work that they have to do, which might be to sit down, spend 45 minutes or whatever it is, going through this process of the 3 seats, they never end up doing it. And it's the one thing that could potentially change everything, but they don't do it because they get caught up in doing all of the other stuff. And this is the reason why I say that we need to work on this relationship with ourselves. We need to spend time understanding who we are, whether that's doing a 3-seat thing, whether that's journaling, whatever it is. But we get so caught up doing all of the other stuff that apparently we're meant to be doing because that's what the world expects of us.
Yeah.
That we never find out us.
And ego gets in the way of a lot of information, right? Like you're coaching people, I'm coaching people. I coach a lot of business people as well who want to go to the next level and be an even better leader in their life. And it starts with putting your own oxygen mask on first before you can help others. And one of the hardest things an entrepreneur can say is this one simple little question, and that is, can you please help me? But as an entrepreneur, we've got to wear the cape and we've got to go out there and fight the fight. But if they just actually let go of ego, and they say that in the super, ultra wealthy, the billionaires, they're the people that have no ego around it and just ask for help wherever they go. And it's a direct opposite to what a startup will do. Funny about that. So the more curious, the more open, the more you drop ego, shit can really happen.
There we go. That's how I get the $8 million house if I want it.
Boom, boom, and you are cured.
But it's interesting actually that you said the word let go probably about 10 times in the space of a minute there. And it's interesting because in my journaling, that is one word that keeps on coming up for me time and time again at the moment. So I do a lot of breath work and meditations and stuff. And the one thing that keeps on coming up for me is let go.
Interesting.
Just those two words, let go.
So what, well, try not to be a coach here. So what are you going to let go of? What do you think people have got to let go of?
I believe, but then this is coming from my own perspective. So I'm going to tie this very loosely is for me, and hopefully it will resonate with quite a few people listening, is control. I'm a pretty big control freak. I know that I need to let go of control because my control is probably what is stifling whereabouts I want to go.
I hear. I'm 100% with you. Same here. Yep. Big time.
And that's control of myself, but then also what's going on around me. So I've got 2 young kids and I'm constantly reminding myself when I'm dealing with them, they're being really creative and stuff upstairs. And I sort of think, oh no, they're making a mess. It's just, do you know what? Just let go. It really doesn't matter. So you asked Elon about tips just while we're on this. I haven't got let go written down here at the moment, but because we look at our phones so often, what I do to create awareness.
I haven't even looked at mine today. Nice.
Nicely done.
That's a lie. That's a complete lie, people.
I use the start of the phone. Anyone who's listening cannot see that, but when you pick up your phone, the screen lights up, and whatever I'm trying to bring into my awareness. So whether that's let go, whether it's just a little thing that I need to keep repeating to myself, I will put it on my phone. So I am constantly being reminded all the time, this is what you focused on, Anthony. This is what you focused on. Like, just stay on track. And that's a really good way to actually make our phones useful to us because most of the time they're really unuseful.
Hey, check this out. I just thought of this quick story. You're a speaker. I'm a speaker. I heard I had a couple of mates that shared the stage. They were invited to speak on stage with Tony Robbins a few years ago. And they took footage of themselves jumping on his trampoline because he's got a trampoline out the back to get him primed, and he's got his own breath work thing before he goes out on stage. He's got this whole thing, and they've got footage of them jumping on his trampoline. It's like basically blasphemy. But what they did, they went up to the lectern. On the lectern, there was a drawn red heart on a piece of white paper. And they asked, what's with the red heart? And Tony said, it just reminds me through this whole event just to love them. I went, oh, wow, what an anchor. Like what a way to deliver, right? And so don't know how that ties in. What we were talking about, don't know. Who cares?
I can tie that in. Don't you worry, Trav. I'll tie it in. Funny you should say that because when somebody who wants to go into the world of entertainment, clearly there's some ego there. Yeah?
Oh yeah,
there's quite a lot of ego there. You don't want to go stand on the stage if you haven't got that side of the ego. And I remember when I used to work the cruise ships, so traveling around, go on the cruise ship and do a show in the theater. It was my own show, so it was just me doing the show. So ego through the roof at this point in time in my career, and I was always really worried about, well, what happens if I go out there and the audience don't like me? What if I say the wrong thing? What if they catch me out in a trick? What if I say something and they don't laugh? What if I forget the routine that I'm doing? All of this stuff, but it was all focused on me. And I remember really vividly, I was to the side of the stage one night. I was out in the wings. The show was about to start, and there's this pre-show video that's playing. And I'm stood there with these usual thoughts going through my head, worrying about me. And all of a sudden, for some reason, this thought came into my head. It's, what if it wasn't about you? What if it was about the audience instead? Because they've come into this room to watch you perform. What if you go out there and make sure that you give them the best experience ever? And something happened that night that completely flicked the switch for me in the way that I've communicated ever since.
Interesting.
And that is, it's not about me. It is about the people in the room. And I've kind of tied this down to a little line now, and that is, there is not one person that you meet every single day, whether that's little short one-on-one meeting face-to-face, or whether that's you standing up on stage in front of 1,000 people. But there is not one of those people that woke up that morning saying, I hope I have a really shit day. Every single person wants to have a good day. And I think if you approach every single interaction that you ever have with that mindset, you're going to add value to another person. You're going to communicate with them in a completely different way. They could be having the crappiest day in the world. And if you can just bring that little bit of light into their life, it's a very powerful place to communicate from.
One of the best places, best places to come from, in terms of mental health as well, because with depression, having been through that, you're so worried about self. You're so insular. You're so it's me against the world. And it's easy for me to say it now, but, flipping the script and just, like you said, providing value pouring into other people and adding value to other people's lives is the antidote. It changes the game. And if you go out there, like, who can I help today? It's one thing that I have helped people actually write down as a quote to look at, say on their phone or on a piece of paper or whatever that they see when they wake up, is who can I help today? And that just heals so much. It's amazing. So providing value, giving them, our job is, whether it be edutainment, entertainment, education, whatever it is to give them. It's I can tell you're a mature speaker. It's less about ego. It's less about me, and how good I look. It's more about adding value to people's life and giving them the best experience, Because like I said, on a cruise ship, they've taken 2 weeks or whatever off work. They've sacrificed a lot of money. They're here. Let's give them the best experience they can, that you can. Love it. Mate, let's talk about just quickly the relationship between communication and really what this podcast is all about is potential, right? And I know you talk a lot about potential and helping people step into and experience their own potential. And in my vernacular, it's before they get given a use-by date. How can we help them step into their more, their potential, quicker?
Quicker, I would say. So I would say on this, and I know that this is something that you cover. So what I would say is go and watch your TED Talk, and that whole my life in weeks or months, whatever it is,
where you cross out boxes.
Yeah,
I've added a whole fucking row since I've done that. It would FYI.
Is that it?
Yeah, I've had to cross out another row.
Oh, okay. I thought that you found a secret way to extend your life. You found.
No, I'm working on that.
Fountain of youth or something.
The average age of death is, let's say, 80, and one of the. So when I turned 50, I got this. If you can see it, I got this tattoo. It's on my chest. Now, those that are watching on YouTube, you'll be.
That's an interesting screen grab.
There's hey team. There's the image we're going to use. As I've got one of the things on my bucket list is to become a centenarian, to live beyond 100, and hopefully, science will make that happen. Blah blah blah, and just looking after yourself. Anyway, my little mantra. So on my chest, I've got a tattoo that 1973 to 2073 plus afterwards, after the 2073, nice. With the whole idea that if I look at that in the mirror every morning, and hopefully, psychosomatic, it'll hopefully take over and get me to, go beyond 100.
So there was the whole life thing, and what's going to motivate people or inspire people or give them that kick to start to move towards.
Yeah. We see, that's the thing. We see so many people just sleepwalking through our life, and we wake people up, whether we like it or whether it's obvious to us or not. We wake people up, and we want them to live in their own potential, experience their own potential, because that's exactly what you want for your kids, right? Why the fuck? Yeah. Why don't we fucking do it?
Yeah.
How can we do it?
I would say, watch your TED Talk to get that whole my life in years or months or weeks. I think weeks is obviously. So I've done it in the weeks before, and when you see it in weeks, because it's so emotional, it's a horrible thing to do, but it's very. And afterwards, you're sort of thinking, shit, there's not that many weeks left. But it gives you then that jolt that you need, because a lot of us just need to be shaken and woken up and go, why are you concentrating on stupid stuff that doesn't even matter? Half the stuff that you're worried about, it doesn't matter. And half the time, we're worried about we're worried about our thoughts. We're not actually really worried about reality. We're worried about what we think might happen, not actually what is going to happen.
That's true.
So understanding what it is that we're holding on to, this is the reason why journaling is so powerful, and just letting stuff go. Do you know what? That does not matter. Let it go, because I need to concentrate on what is really important. I use a vision board, actually. So I've got a TV over in this side of my office here that has got my vision board on it. So it's slides that come up on the TV screen, and that's just playing constantly reminding myself of what it is that is important.
Awesome. Mate. And look, I could go on and on and on, you know, like it's a fascinating, because it's often the thing that we, you know, communication, for instance, if we're going to give you that sort of umbrella, it's the thing that we take for granted, that we think we know, but unfortunately it's not something that we go out and really study unless we're put into a workplace environment where, you know, we've all got to get along to create a great culture and that sort of thing. But our communication, you know, again, referencing NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, our words are our window to our unconscious, every single word. And so as a coach, I can't help it, you know, like yourself, even more so with you, because you're looking not just the words, you're looking at eyes, you're looking at hand, you're looking at all sorts of gestures, but they're a window into our unconscious. And we use those certain words to describe our life and to get our way through the world. What if we just changed a few of those words? What if we just changed a few of those real small little habits in communication, right? And that would make the world a difference, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're going to use the umbrella of communication, I would say when it comes to communication, the first thing that you've got to do is learn to communicate with yourself much better before you try and communicate with anybody else. Because that internal communication, the byproduct of that will be that you become a much better communicator with others, because you can understand yourself better when you're having those conversations.
Yeah, and we're all like, you know, I've got a long, even though I do this for a living, I've got a long way to go. Yeah, not everything's rosy.
We all have.
Yeah. And I guess that's where the growth mindset is, you know, is like, all right, I'm curious about my own communication. I'm curious about, you know, if a goal is unattainable, then why? What have I got to communicate? What have I got to project out to the world in order to maybe the law of reciprocity will kick in at some stage? Yeah, I'd love to dig into this more maybe in round 2, mate, because I think we've only scratched the surface here, but we've been going for 51 freaking minutes. So, mate, is there any other stuff you'd like to share around communication? You know, like what are you working on at the moment? What's resonating with audiences, clients at the moment from your end?
So for me, what I'm working on at the moment is I'm currently in a transition point for myself. A lot of my work up until this point in time has been a lot of keynote speaking. So standing on stage, speaking for anywhere between 60 minutes to 90 minutes on the topic of communication skills, very much around communication with self. That's now starting to develop more into the workshop side of things. I've been coaching people one-on-one as well for a while, starting to develop a coaching group so that I can dive more into the weeds with people rather than just doing the 60 to 90 minutes on stage, because that's great. People walk out of it and they go, yeah, cool. I've got 3 or 4 cool tools I can go off and use straight away. Like most people though, after a month of seeing me on stage, they'll start to drop out of the habits. They might keep a couple of things going, but normally they'll drop out of it. And what I love seeing is people that it becomes ingrained into them. It becomes part of who they are. And then all of a sudden, their life suddenly takes this completely different turn, and they don't even realize that it's happening because it's happened so organically over time. That's what really lights me up at the moment. I like to call it, I mean, you've obviously got the whole idea of the bucket list. I like to call it a life less ordinary.
Nice. Love that. I guess, you know, we both share that is we want people to, you know, give themselves permission to live a life less ordinary, live a bucket list life. You know, that's what it's all about. And therefore have a massive ripple effect into their circle of influence as well, especially the younger generation. And we know that this stuff works in the face of, you know, the big perfect storm of mental health that we're all in amongst right now. and the new kid on the block, which I'm sure you're aware of, is the loneliness epidemic. They've actually called it an epidemic. We know what a fucking pandemic is, thank you very much, but an epidemic of loneliness. It's a real thing. And that's why I wanted to bring you on today, because, communication, as they say in old school, belly to belly, knee to knee, face to face communication is long gone. And I think we can be better parents, better friends, certainly better in business if we go back to old school. Instead of texting people, we get proactive, get on the front foot, go meet them. And I've been really conscious of that, especially for the last 6 months of this year, is going, no, man, like we go deep in DMs and this sort of thing. I've like, nah, you know what? I'm going to get, and I haven't really told them this. And if you're watching mates, friends of mine, like it'll now sink in. Why did Trav come all this way, or he was in different part of the world, and why did he make this effort to come and have coffee? Well, it's because of this is going old school, and you can't get that through the DMs. And I think that gives me a massive sense of fulfillment, because we live on our phones. And I think this communication thing, if you're, rating yourself, 1 to 10 scale, 10's an amazing communicator, 1's a shit one. If you're rating yourself and you're around the 5 below or 7 below or whatever, maybe this is a topic, and explore Anthony's stuff. Maybe this is a topic that we've got to put under the microscope for 2025 coming up, or at least a season of it, right?
Yeah. With the risk, I'm trying really hard here to not send us down another rabbit hole.
It's all right.
At the risk of sending us down a rabbit hole, the loneliness epidemic. There's been some studies and stuff done on this about removing the phones from people, and people have have had PTSD and stuff by having their technology taken away.
The real thing.
I honestly believe that a big part of the loneliness is we are so scared of connecting with ourselves, being left in our own thoughts for the space of just a few hours. For some people, sounds like absolute torture. I honestly believe that that's whereabouts we need to start dealing with the loneliness. Is we need to be comfortable with ourselves first of all. We have to spend a lot of time with ourselves. If you're gonna get a centurion, you're gonna get 100+. That's a long time spending time with you. So you've got to like you.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I might refresh that idea. I might workshop that. I'm super annoying and a control freak on myself. So yeah, I'll look into that.
I was going to have the date lasered and change it ever so slightly.
Yeah.
I mean, but things like journaling, that's connecting with yourself. It's just one of the small stepping stones that I believe that could move us towards not feeling so lonely. That, and obviously face-to-face connection as well. But it's not just a face-to-face connection, because you need to understand you as well.
Love that. To add to that too, some of the biggest, selling retreats that happen, speakers and coaches, and they put on retreats around the world, whether it be leadership retreat, the biggest ones that are the most popular right now are when they do it in black spots. They do it off the grid, no phones, and, obviously all the silent retreats are no stimulus, and they're selling like hotcakes. Or wonder why, because that is a holiday, right? And that's where we get the opportunity to be with self. And, it's certainly a muscle that we've got to take back to the gym. So I really, mate, thanks for jumping on. How can people, communicate, pardon the pun, with you? How can people connect with you?
So I post quite a bit on Instagram. So that is Anthony Laye Speaks. Obviously the website, anthonylaye.com. And then for those of you that are slightly more along the professional lines, then there's LinkedIn as well. And that's just Anthony Laye.
Perfect, buddy. Perfect. Well, thanks so much for jumping on today. And I like I said, I reckon we can go on and on and on, but we do have some sort of restrictions here. So, mate, thanks heaps for jumping on. Guys, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, social media, you know what to do. Like, love heart, thumbs up, leave a review, comment, share. You know what to do. Share the love, communicate this communication message out. That's what it's all about. Thanks. so much for those subscribers, people that are engaging in the content. Really stoked that it's, finding the audience. And if you are watching, listening to this, you're certainly one of those audience members. So I'm very, very grateful for you and your continued support. And we've got some amazing guests coming up. And until next time, thanks heaps, guys. Bye for now.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bucket List Life podcast with the world's #1 bucket list expert, Trav Bell. For more great content, go to www.thebucketlistguy.com. We'll see you next time.